Okay, guys. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Hadi. I work with Safari Star. We are a business setup provider and corporate service provider here in the UAE, and we have offices here as well as in Saudi Arabia and China. And today's topic is about Dubai Business Setup 2026, specifically mainland versus free zone, what the differences are, what the benefits might be, the visas, what kind of visas you can get, and what's changed, especially in this year. We'll give you a whole guide throughout the whole, the stages and the process, how it happens. Okay. Okay, so for today's agenda, we'll just go through it quickly. So we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to welcome the topic, why 2026 is different. Then we're going to go specifically into mainland versus free zone. Excuse me. We're then going to talk about ownership and updates to the business rules and laws here in the UAE. We'll briefly guide over corporate tax essentials, residency pathways, especially investor visas, and maybe golden visas as well. We'll come on to costs, timelines, and common mistakes that some people make. And then we'll end it all with the Q&A session. So you can drop your questions if ever you have them. I'll answer them in the last 15 minutes of the webinar. Okay, so to start us off, we can see that 2026 has been a very pivotal year, especially for UAE business setup. You guys know the kind of geopolitical situation that's happened, and that's besides what's still being changed every month, it seems, here in the UAE. So laws are changing, licenses steps are being revised, corporate tax obligations are changing, and these changes are coming all together for the first time since 2021, which was after COVID. So right after COVID, we saw a big change in the UAE business setup market, and then now again, we're seeing another shift in the market. So just to look at it in a glance, so nowadays 100% foreign ownership is available across most mainland and free zone activities, whereas maybe a few years ago this wasn't the case. A lot of activities still required local ownership, and before 2021 it was a completely different world where most activities actually did require a local owner. The standard corporate tax rate is at 9%, above the taxable income threshold, which, if you guys know, is basically $100,000 US. So anything above that gets taxed 9%. So we now also have 10-year golden visas, along with some visas which are 5 years, depending on the kind of visa and the qualification and why you have a golden visa. The government will determine whether you get 5 years, 10 years. So that's there. And then you can also sponsor your family to get 10-year visas as well. And these days, especially, free zone licenses have been being processed extremely quick. Whereas like about a few years ago, the average was maybe 5 to 10 days, maybe more, 2 weeks we've seen as well. But nowadays it's, on average 3 to 7 days, but we've seen some licenses even be released within the same day, within a few hours of submitting the documents. So it's all on a case-to-case basis, but it's come a long way from where it began, for sure. So let's start off with a mainland versus free zone side-by-side comparison. So just for the general information, let's talk about what the difference is. What is a mainland? What is free zone? So mainland, or if we're talking about specifically Dubai mainland, those are basically, it talks about all those businesses which would require a physical presence. So most of the businesses that you would see, physically you would see, and they're tangible. So like grocery stores, restaurants, cafeterias, or like the office that I'm in right now is considered a mainland company because it does require a large physical space. Now, this doesn't mean that all companies have to be mainland if they are using a physical space. There are some exceptions there. For example, if you're opening up in a free zone area, so an area owned by the free zone, that could be considered a free zone, not a mainland. And additionally, a lot of free zone companies will set up in a business center So a business center is a building in which many small offices are located side by side. They're also known as co-working spaces in some cases. So a lot of free zone companies set up here as well. So it's a lot of gray area, but in general, to keep it simple, a mainland company is any company that you can see that would require a physical space or that requires government access. Okay, so let's just go through these differences one by one. So ownership, again, 100% foreign ownership for most activities, whereas a free zone has 100% foreign ownership for all activities, because some activities in the mainland still do require locals, such as law firms and things that usually will deal with the government in a very direct way, or you would need to access government officials and things like that, or it's legislative or has something to do with the law. Those will most likely require some sort of local ownership. Okay. In terms of the activities that are available in both, so the mainland works off the DED list. So the DED list is the Dubai Economic Development or Department list, and it's UAE wide. So the whole UAE follows it, no matter if you're in Ras Al Khaimah, if you're in Ajman, or if you're in Dubai. They all have the same or similar activities. They might have different names in each of the cities, but more or less they have the same activities. And this is given by the government, right? Now, free zones will like to specialize in some activities more than others. For example, there is a new free zone in Ras Al Khaimah called Innovation City. Now, they used to be a crypto or Web3 only free zone. Now they've broadened their activity list, but some free zones will be better for some activities than others. That's just a basic fact. But most free zones will also have the general activities, such as general trading or any kind of trading, e-commerce, and maybe consultancies and these things. The basic kind of activities most free zones will have. Okay, now we'll go over the office requirement a bit more in detail. So in the mainland, a lot of people think that, okay, I'm setting up a mainland company. That means that I have to get an office. Now, that's not entirely true, okay? You can still set up a mainland company with a virtual office. Now, in which cases would this be applicable? So this would be applicable only in some activities. So this is determined by the government, that which activities require a physical space, which activities don't. And other than the government, it also depends on the ministries. For example, if I'm looking to set up a travel agency, right? Now, the travel agency activity is governed, of course, by the DED, but also by DCAA, which is the Dubai Civil Aviation Authority, right? So this is just an example. That's an external third party kind of, but it's a government authority. So they will put a restriction on that activity that no, we require this activity to have a certain office space of a certain square feet or square meter size. So it's usually dependent upon the third party, whoever it is, and their requirement for an office space. Most cases, like obvious cases, like for example, a restaurant, a barbershop, these would require an office space or a shop space, which is self-explanatory. In terms of a free zone, I would say 90% of free zone activities do not require an office space, maybe even like 99%. But in some special cases, when you're looking at some activities, for example, in the bigger free zones, which we'll go over in a bit, such as DMCC, DIFC, ADGM, some of them may require you to take an office space. Okay, but in general, when we're talking about the greater population and the mainstream kind of licenses, they do not require an office space. The free zone itself will be providing a co-working space within the free zone. That way you get a business address to set up the bank account and tax registration, whatever else you need to. So in terms of the market access, a mainland license is of course going to be better for the local market just in general, because first of all, it's the strongest UAE license. A Dubai mainland license or an Abu Dhabi mainland license will most likely be one of the strongest licenses if you're looking to trade, especially within the UAE, since you're going to be registered directly by the government, right? Now, it will also help you specifically if you're looking to get government contracts. And this is namely for Abu Dhabi mainland. Dubai mainland also works, but specifically Abu Dhabi mainland is going to be the only kind of jurisdiction a lot of companies in the government will look to work with. For example, for petroleum, we've had clients in the past who are looking for like safety trading, where it was like emergency kits and tents and these things, and they wanted to work with the government, and their contacts told them that they will only accept an Abu Dhabi mainland license. Okay, so in terms of a free zone, since a free zone is more like a digital or a virtual business, it's much better for international, whether if it's trading, if it's consultancy, if it's mentoring, if it's fitness, like online fitness training, or lifestyle coaching, e-commerce, of course, anything which, again, doesn't require a physical presence and that can be handled with third-party logistics, for example, or through online meetings or online, conferences. A free zone is best for that, and a lot of people are doing that, especially consultancy, e-commerce are very, very common. Now, again, the best fit, again, is for the mainland is for retail services which require face-to-face, firms needing local market reach. And then for free zone, trading, but this is, again, import-export mainly, business-to-business trading, because you cannot really do B2C trading unless it's online. You wouldn't be able to sell to consumers, to customers directly, unless you're selling through an online channel, whether it's Amazon, Noon, or anything else. Now, free zones also are very good for holding companies. So holding companies are going to be good for, financial management, owning properties in the UAE, and wealth management in general, just to protect the shareholders. We'll go more over that in a bit. Okay, so just about mainland, we'll talk about the strengths and the trade-offs, right? So the main strengths of the mainland companies are that, again, you'll have full access to the UAE domestic market. You'll be able to do B2C very efficiently. You'll be able to have a storefront. You'll be eligible for government and business-to-government contracts. And if you have large teams and you need visas, it's very good for that, because even on a small office space, you would have a large availability of quotas so that you can hire employees. And your amount of quotas that you get as a mainland company directly relates to the size of the office space, because it's logical. If your office is small, the government will allow you a small number of visas. If you're having a very big office, they'll allow you more and more visa quotas. So from the last update, it was 80 square feet per visa quota. Now, of course, the trade-offs are physical offices are, as I said, sometimes required. And generally, the setup cost is extremely, well, it's not that high, but it's higher than a free zone. And there are also renewal costs, which, of course, you also have to think of the fact about, your tenancy contract, because that will be a yearly contract that you'll have to renew, and it will come as a business expense. And that will be kind of the biggest one. And yeah, the approval can span multiple authorities, whether it's the DET or if it's any of the sub-authorities like DTCM or, as I said, DCAA or Maritime Authority, depending on your activities and things like that. So moving on to the next slide. 1 second. Okay. So now we'll talk about the free zone strengths and its trade-offs as well. So as we briefly touched upon, a free zone company can have 100% ownership across all activities. There's no exceptions there. It's a very fast setup, and it's mainly digital. The license can be released without you even having to be in the country. And yes, you'll have customs duty exemptions on qualifying trades. So this is specifically good for if you have a designated free zone. So what a designated free zone is it's a free zone that's located on the port, whether it's an airport or a seaport. And it's a different kind of license than a regular free zone license. And a designated free zone license will allow you a lot of exemptions and a lot of ease if you're looking to import and export. And of course, having that flexi desk or shared office space will lower your yearly costs, because it will be included in the license cost rather than having to go out and find an office space separately. Now, what are the trade-offs? So yeah, you're restricted, your activities are restricted upon the free zone that you choose. And if you'd like to trade directly with mainland companies, or you're looking to do B2C, you would need a local distributor or a logistics company that you'd have to tie up with. And of course, that's a cost. And again, here, whereas in the mainland, your visa is tied to your office space, here, it's directly related into the package that you select. So if you select a cheaper package, you'll have less visas. The more visas you want, the more costly the package will become. All right. And here are some of the very popular free zones. Now, Ibza, Maidan, Masdar, Dubai South, SPC, or Dubai South Business Hub and SPC would come under one kind of free zone type, which is kind of the more general free zones, which they would offer e-commerce, trading, consultancies, and things like that. Then if you look at some of the very big and premium free zones, you've got DMCC, which is Dubai Multi-Commodities Center. We've got DIFC, Dubai International Financial Center, and ADGM, Abu Dhabi Global Market. So these DIFC and ADGM are very good for finance-related businesses, as these companies, these free zones, they deal with the UK laws, okay? And so they're very good for financial services or very large-scale companies that are looking to penetrate the UAE market as well. And DMCC is very good for commodities. So crypto is very good for it, as well as gold trading, commodities trading, anything that goes into that. And DMCC has its own offices, and that's in JLT, if you've heard of that. So Jumeirah Lake Towers. So they have very premium office options as well, which, as I said in the beginning, I touched upon it. Some free zones have offices as well that you can take. So it's not necessarily that mainland office, free zone, no office. It's a gray area. Okay, so if you were looking to invest into the UAE or set up a business, how would you go about it? How to choose? What would your decision be? How would you make a decision? So you could ask yourself some of these questions. Do you plan to trade physically with UAE customers? Do you need a shop front? Do you need to physically have goods or services displayed in person so that they can come into your office and trade with you directly? If yes, you're going for a mainland company, all right? You want to make sure that you have 100% ownership of the company and you want to have multiple activities under one license, then a free zone is good, because in the mainland, you cannot have multiple activities of different kinds in one license. A Dubai mainland or any kind of mainland in the UAE license will have one activity group. So what I mean by that, for example, if I'm looking to have, let's say, accounting services as my main activity, but I also want to do, excuse me, but I also want to do spare parts trading, I would not be able to do both of them in the same license in the mainland company. Whereas in a free zone, I can combine any kind of activities that I want in most cases. So I could do e-commerce. I could combine e-commerce with project management consultancy. I could combine that also with general trading, things like that. So free zone is very flexible. So would you require a government contract or a street level presence? Again, a mainland is much better for that. As we touched upon previously, a government will hesitate to work with free zone companies, whereas on the other side, they're very open to work with mainland companies. And if you're looking to have the cheapest possible investment, or you're trying to minimize your setup costs, and time is your top priority, so you just want to get going as soon as possible, you want to enter into the market, you want to start getting clients, and later on, if it makes sense, you can expand into the mainland, then a free zone is usually the best option in that case. So next, we will talk about what's changed in terms of ownership and licensing. So as we touched upon earlier as well, foreign ownership rules, expanded activity lists make it so that more activities are now eligible for 100% foreign ownership, especially on the mainland as well. And we used to hear this thing a lot where clients would ask us, do we need a local service agent for that? Do we need a local partner? That's reduced a lot. It's almost gone. I think there's just about 5 4 to 5% activities that would require a local partner. And now that's mainly out the window. And a lot of companies these days that have been in the market for a long time, in the times that a local partner was required, these companies are now approaching us and they are removing their local partner because, of course, there's no need for the local partner. And other than that, it would also help the structure of the company because you would be able to convert your sole proprietorship or your partnership into an LLC, which is always going to be more beneficial, and it would protect your assets in all cases. So the licensing requirements. So yes, the streamlined activity codes and updated documentation standards for new trade license applications. So they've made it very standardized. They've made most free zones also follow the same activity codes. So for example, if one free zone has an activity code and you want to make sure that another free zone that you actually want to go for has that activity also, most likely their codes will be, if not the same, they'll be very similar. So it will be easier for you to locate the activities that you want to do. Compliance obligations. So new reporting and economic substance requirements for entities across several sectors. Yes. So this is especially for, of course, industrial companies, as well as some trading companies that deal in like high risk things, such as chemicals or waste trading. So as you know, the UAE and a lot of the companies in the Middle East are always pushing to have a net, like no carbon impact basically, and they want to be more environmentally friendly. So especially recently in the UAE, it's being pushed a lot that companies have to abide by the new economic substance requirements. I won't go into too much detail about that because it's a very niche subject, but yeah, there's just more strict requirements on that. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so a compliance checklist, what you must do. So first of all, we hear it a lot. You must maintain a UBO, an ultimate beneficiary owner, a beneficial owner. And if there are any changes to the ultimate beneficial owner, you must update, if it's a UAE company, you must update the UAE company in that case, because it's very important to keep a track of in the case of any future amendments or changing anything of your license. You need to know who the UBO is. Okay, next is registering for VAT once turnover exceeds the mandatory threshold. So again, it's the same thing as we touched upon previously, where corporate tax, I mentioned, was 100,000 US dollars, and anything above the 100,000 US dollars of your gross profit would be charged 9%. Now VAT is same. You do not have to register for VAT until you reach the voluntary threshold, which is around 187,000, I believe, in or around that amount. So once you reach that amount, you can voluntarily register for VAT. But once you cross 370,000 or 100,000 US dollars, it's mandatory for you to register for VAT. Okay. Why, you might ask, why that someone would voluntarily want to register for VAT? Well, a lot of companies, when they're making contracts between one another, they ask for the VAT number and things like that. So a lot of people might get registered for VAT beforehand. Okay. Again, meet economic substance regulation, ESR, wherever it applies for your activity. AML has become very, very important in the UAE recently. We've seen it in multiple cases. A lot of activities are being labeled as DNFPB, which basically means that it's a risk for money laundering. So there's a lot of stringent requirements for that as well, such as GoAML, which is basically a local government portal that has you registered to make sure that they can check whether you're money laundering, basically. Next, file your corporate tax return within 9 months of your financial year end. A lot of companies in the UAE are taking corporate tax lightly. They're not registering for it. They're not filing on time, and they're facing massive penalties. 10,000 minimum is the starting penalties for these cases, and we've seen it time and time again. So please make sure you are ahead of your corporate tax returns. So again, I'll briefly go over the corporate tax and the essentials. As you said, it's a 9% standard corporate tax rate on taxable profit. So mainland and free zone entities most likely do register, even if profits are below the threshold. Companies which are sole proprietorships, they need not register until they reach 1 million dirhams of taxable profit, after which they must register. Okay. In terms of the companies that are exempt, are qualifying free zones or qualifying free zone persons. So you hear it quite often that, maybe Dubai has 0% tax and there's no corporate tax, or some companies there's no corporate tax. So this is kind of a misconception, because most companies will have to pay corporate tax once they cross the taxable profit threshold. But some companies who are qualifying free zone companies or persons, they do qualify for 0% corporate tax, but it's not easy to get, and it's very strict requirements that would not meet most people's needs, such as, for example, the most common one is a headquarters. So this is one kind of office or one kind of structure that would allow your company to be 0% corporate tax. And what it is a headquarters is basically, say you have a global company that's quite large and you just need a headquarters here that will handle admin, paperwork, and things like that. And it needs to have a minimum of 9 to 10 employees. So just think about it. You're hiring employees, you're paying for their visas, you're getting the office space, you're doing everything, and the costs are so high just for you to save on 9% of corporate tax. In most cases, it's not worth it, because the regulations here are very friendly. 9% is very low if you compare it to most other countries, especially in Europe. So yeah, that's all I'll talk about for corporate tax, because actually we had a previous webinar for corporate tax. You guys can scan this QR code if you'd like to take a look at that, or you can search it up on YouTube or Safari Star. We had a previous webinar about corporate tax, and that was very long and very amazing, guide on the corporate tax in the UAE, especially of this year. So moving on. Okay, so now we'll talk a bit about investor residency and visa pathways. So we'll talk about, first of all, investor visas. So investor visas are tied directly to your company shareholding. They are typically 2 years and renewable with the business. Now, we've seen a lot of changes in investor visas recently, especially in Dubai, where there's been requirements for investors to provide paid capital of at least 50,000 dirhams. And without this, they were not able to get the investor visa. And a lot of people nowadays are just opting for the employee visa because of this. Now, there's some pros and cons of the investor visa. The first pro is that typically you are able to be outside of the UAE for 365 days, so 1 year, whereas an employee visa will only allow you 6 months outside of the UAE. So that's one advantage. But the disadvantage is that if, in the case, as I said already, the 50,000 capital requirement is there, but other than that, if you want to sponsor your family members or anyone, you would have to pay a deposit of, basically it's around 3,000 dirhams, and you're paying that security deposit so long as you want their visa to be valid. Whereas on an employment visa, there's no such deposit. You are able to just sponsor and pay the visa fee rather than having to pay the visa fee and the deposit. Why this is happening is because an investor visa proves that you do not have a stable income. You do not have a salary. So that's why they ask for a security deposit, to make sure that you can actually maintain it. And you're able to have stability or have the finances to actually sponsor your family and live comfortably here in the UAE. Whereas an employee is getting a constant salary, so they do not need to prove that they are able to stabilize and financially handle their family here. Next, the golden visa. So a golden visa, as we said, there's many different kinds of golden visas now in the UAE. There's 10-year ones, which is mainly based off of investments, whether that's property or it can be a direct deposit into a bank account here, and that's 2 million and above. If you deposit 2 million dirhams and above, or you invest in a property that's worth 2 million or above, you're eligible for a golden visa. As well as if you hold an executive manager position for at least 2 years and you're earning a salary of 30,000 for those 2 years or more, you're eligible for a golden visa. Other than that, talent and people who have contributed to the UAE's success in any way, for example, sportsmen and women who are maybe directly contributing to the UAE, playing in the UAE's local teams at a very high level, or they're in the government, or they're scientific researchers that are providing value to the UAE, they can actually get a golden visa as well for 10 years by ensuring that their portfolio is strong, by ensuring that they have government documents that support them as well. And then lastly, it's also upon education. So people who have come in the top ranks in the UAE universities can also apply for a golden visa. Oh, I just talked about this. So as I said, yeah, property investors, business owners and entrepreneurs, specialized talents, and outstanding students as well. So let's talk about your business setup journey. If we talk about it in a general perspective, I'll talk about mainland and free zone as well. So in general, you're going to choose your kind of activity and structure. So let's say I want to set up an e-commerce business. So I will, usually I will have at least 3 names, business names that I'm confident in that I want to go with. And the reason we ask for 3 is in case one is not available, we move to the next. We'll reserve the name and we'll do the initial security approvals. We'll apply for the license. We'll submit our documents. Documents are usually just your passport, your visa if you have, and some of the free zone forms, the kind of details that they require from you, such as your email, your phone number, etc. And at this point, you would also decide whether you want an office space or you're okay with a flexi desk. Most cases, you'd be okay with a flexi desk. And after your license is released, you would open up your corporate bank account. After which, actually, before the corporate bank account, or simultaneously, you would be applying for your visas as well. And after the bank account, after everything's set up, you would then apply for your employees. That's usually the typical case for the free zone. Now, in the terms of the mainland, the slide you see before you is a bit more accurate for the mainland. So you're going to choose your activity, what kind of structure you want. Most people go for the LLC. You'll do the trade name reservation and the initial approval, after which the system will ask for your ijari. So what is an ijari? An ijari is a tenancy contract. So a tenancy contract, as we said, in the mainland can be a virtual office or it can be a physical office. Whichever one you decide, we would provide that contract into the system, and soon after the license would be released or the payment voucher would be released, which is basically a voucher. So once you pay that payment voucher, your license would come released instantly, after which you can apply for the corporate bank account, you can apply for your visas, etc., etc. Okay, so let's talk about the budget, the timeline, and the ranges. So in general, in Dubai, this is specific to Dubai, a free zone setup will begin around 12,000 dirhams, and it can range up to 25,000 dirhams and more. Now, this depends on the free zone you're going for, what kind of activity you have. Meydan, Dubai South, Ifza, these businesses or these free zones will typically range from 12,000 to 13,000, whereas kind of the more premium or the bigger free zones, DIFC, DMCC, the license cost alone will start from 25 to 30,000, and then there will be additional things that you would have to get, such as office space or co-working agreements, which will not be included in the license cost in those cases. A mainland company is also around 15 to 35,000. Now, this depends on your activity, especially in the mainland. For example, general trading will cost you an extra 15,000, reaching that 30 to 35,000 threshold. And real estate will also be a bit more expensive. So some activities in the mainland are more expensive than others, whereas in the free zone, most activities are around the same cost. Okay. The timelines for the free zone, as I said, is 3 to 7 working days. Mainland also can be within 1 to 3 weeks. It actually depends entirely on the government. When you have the appointment for the MOA signing, when you have the appointments for after that as well for your visas and things like that. So typically your visa will cost anywhere from 3,500 to 7,000. Again, this will depend on the kind of visa you're applying for. And if it's an employee visa, the designation you're applying for. A higher designation will always have a higher cost. So that's something to keep in mind. So bank account opening, again, will not have a fixed fee, right? It's completely dependent on your activity, the kind of bank account you want to open, which bank you want to open with. That will determine your fee. It can be anywhere from 99 dirhams a month to up to 50,000 and more by just if you're counting deposits and insurance and things like that. And a bank account can take anywhere from 3 to 5 days up to 2 to 6 weeks as well. So some of the common mistakes to avoid. So number one, we've seen it, I've seen it before, which is picking a license activity that doesn't actually match what you're looking to do. So what happens, especially in the free zone, especially when you have packages that give you 5 activities, 10 activities, a lot of people will just take activities just because they can, because they're getting 10 activities, because they're getting 5 activities. They will just apply for as many activities as they want, even though they're not actually doing that. They'll be like, okay, maybe in the future I might want to. So that's not a good thing, because as it says in the second point, bank accounts can be much tougher to open if you have multiple activities and no real plan for it. And it will overcomplicate your process. If you have 10 activities and you're actually only doing 1, it doesn't really make sense for you. You should only stick to the activities that you actually plan on doing. Okay. Next is underestimating visa quota and office size requirements, as we touched upon previously. Ignoring corporate tax registration deadlines. Of course, after your license incorporation is done, you must register within 3 months. Else you will face fines of up to 10,000 or more. Next, a lot of people fall into the trap of choosing free zones based on the cost alone, rather than what benefits it might give you, what activity you're looking to do, and why that free zone might be suitable or not suitable for your activity. Next is delaying UBO and compliance filings after incorporation. As we said before, it's very important in the future if you're looking to expand, if you're looking to go into other countries, having these up to date and accurate is very, very important. So next. So these are just the key takeaways. As we said, free zones offer speed and flexibility. Mainland offers full UAE local market access, physical access. 2026 expanded foreign ownership across more mainland activities. 9% corporate tax applies broadly, register early, and keep clean records. Visa pathways are directly tied to the structure that you choose. Budget realistic timelines and watch for the top setup mistakes, as we just talked about. So now it's, for the next 10-15 minutes, we can do a Q&A. So I hope you guys did enjoy the presentation. If you do have any questions, please let me know. I see that Anush has given me a question. Can I move or expand my business between a mainland and free zone company? Yes, you can expand your company from a free zone into a mainland or a mainland into a free zone. Especially within the UAE, it's easier because they've made a kind of ecosystem between the kind of free zones. and the mainland as well, where they make it easy to expand within other regions. So if you're in Dubai and you want to expand into Abu Dhabi, it's going to be much easier than maybe trying to expand outside of the UAE, of course. So they made it very easy. And free zones also, especially Dubai free zones, are making it very easy to expand into the mainland if you'd like. So yes, it's very easy and it's very possible. Any other questions? Getting a business license automatically guarantee that I will get a visa. Thank you, Ananta Krishnan, for your question. No. Getting a license does not automatically mean that you will get a visa. A lot of times, clients will have their license approved, but when it comes to their visa, they get rejected. Now, some common reasons for this are high-risk countries, some countries that are under the radar, that are on the radar right now, and they're facing rejections. We usually inform the clients beforehand that the country that your passport is from may have a chance of rejection, and though the visa might be rejected, most cases the license does get approved. So just because you've got your license does not mean that you'll get a visa. Hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Any questions at all? No problem, Hussam. Thank you so much for everyone attending the meeting today. It was great, and I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. So if no one has any more questions, thank you, Ayari. I hope, I hope I was able to explain it properly. And yeah, it was a great presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed.